Discover the incredible journey of a band turning 100 tons of trash into heartwarming melodies. In the crumbling town of Maplewood, where hope seemed like a distant memory, Emily lived in the shadows of abandoned factories. The echoes of laughter and music once filled the streets, but now only silence lingered. Grieving the loss of her husband to a bitter factory accident, music became Emily's lifeline, a thread she clung to in this town that felt hollow and devoid of dreams. She taught music at the high school, nurturing young souls full of potential, but as the final bell rang for the last time, so too did the last flicker of hope for many. One fateful afternoon, while wandering through the town dump, Emily stumbled upon a group of children. They were sifting through the rubbish, searching for treasures among the debris. Their eyes, wide with innocence, reminded her of the joy that had dwindled in her own heart. As she watched them, inspiration struck like lightning. What if we turned this trash into something beautiful? What if we made music? The idea swirled in her mind, vibrant and daring. Emily envisioned a band, a community united by sound, forged from the very remnants of their forgotten lives. "All right, everyone. We're going to create instruments," Emily called out, rallying the neighborhood. She approached neighbors, veterans, old friends, and reluctant community leaders. "Let us turn 100 tons of trash into a symphony." Skepticism loomed heavily over her like dark storm clouds, but she could see flickers of curiosity in their eyes. The townsfolk, burdened by their struggles, exchanged glances, whispering and rolling their eyes. Yet, a spark of hope flickered amidst their despair. Day by day, they worked together in the dump, laughing, sharing stories, and piecing together makeshift instruments. A rusty bucket became a drum, old pipes transformed into horns, and discarded bottles turned into a xylophone. Each sunset saw them standing shoulder to shoulder, sifting through garbage with dirt-streaked faces but radiant smiles. They began to form a bond that transcended their broken pasts, reminding them they were not alone. Just before their first performance, doubt gripped Emily like a vice. Would their melodies strike a chord? Or would they drown in disbelief? The night hung heavy with anticipation. Voices murmured as the townsfolk gathered, some hesitant faces of the elite watching, puzzled yet intrigued. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the crowd quieted, Emily stood at the forefront, heart pounding against her chest. The makeshift band united behind her, instruments ready, their spirits bright. With their first notes, a tune emerged, raw and unpolished, yet breathtaking. The elite scoffed and whispered harshly. Yet, amidst their scorn, something stirred in the listeners' memories, dreams, and an aching sense of community long forgotten began to unfurl. For the first time in ages, the haunting melodies filled the air with an energy that bridged gaps once thought too wide to cross. As the music echoed through the night, Emily felt a warmth ripple through the crowd. The fragile bonds of hope began to knit themselves together, rallying the townspeople towards something greater. But just as the dream felt alive, a figure emerged from the shadows carrying with him the weight of Emily's past, forcing her to confront unresolved pain. Would their shared dream withstand the struggles that lay ahead? Or would the haunting echoes of their history threaten to unravel everything they had built? As the final notes lingered in the air, one question remained. Could hope truly rise from the ashes of despair? Or would it all fall apart? As the last note faded into the crisp night air, Emily's heart raced, filled with anticipation and fear. Her eyes scanned the crowd, searching for familiar faces among the sea of expressions. The elite, who had arrived skeptical and dismissive, now wore puzzled looks, as if the music had stirred something dormant within them. It momentarily felt like magic, a spark igniting in the hearts of the townspeople. But then a voice broke the spell. "What was that?" came a harsh whisper from the back, echoing doubts instead of appreciation. It was Jonathan, the town councilman, arms crossed defiantly over his chest. "We can't take this seriously. This isn't real music." His words hit like daggers. Emily felt her confidence shatter, and in that instant, she doubted every ounce of hope she had nurtured. but the children's faces, glowing with pride and joy, reminded her of why they had come together in the first place. "Listen," she called out, her voice wavering but earnest. "This music comes from our lives, our struggles, our dreams, our very souls. It might not sound polished, but it is ours." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, a few even nodding, lifting their chins defiantly. "Let us show him," shouted Matt, a boy with a bright smile and wild curls. He took his place at the front, lifted his makeshift drum high, and struck it with all his might. The sound rang out, clear and strong, a bold declaration of their unity. One by one, the band joined in, fueled by a newfound determination. The music swelled, a vibrant tapestry woven from their emotions, shaking off the chains of doubt. They poured everything into each note, the rhythm echoing through the night like thunder. Emily watched in awe as the crowd began to sway, some tapping their feet while others clapped along. Laughter erupted from the children, bubbling forth like an antidote to despair. The band was alive now, not just playing instruments but telling their story, reclaiming their joy. The elite couldn't hide their surprise. Emily noticed a flicker of understanding in their eyes. They remembered what it felt like to feel alive, even if just for a moment. But Jonathan remained unmoved, his scowl deepening, threatening to suppress the fragile hope sprouting in the crowd. Suddenly, the figure from that deep shadow stepped forward, taller than before. It was David, the local mechanic, and also Emily's late husband's best friend. He hadn't been at the performance, avoiding the spotlight as he always did. But now, propelled by the music resonating through the crowd, he pushed past his fears. "Everyone has a story. If you don't listen, you'll miss the beauty in them." His voice boomed, cutting through the tension. David's unexpected bravery empowered others. People began to stand up, to share their own stories of struggle. They spoke of the layoffs, the heartache, and the dreams that had become distant memories. Each revelation fused the audience tighter together, forming a patchwork of shared experience. But just as the crowd united in their voices, Emily felt the chill creep back. She realized that Jonathan was watching closely, calculating, and ready to strike again. Her stomach twisted. Would he use this moment of openness to snuff out their spark? Could one person's disbelief extinguish the fire they had kindled together? As she looked into the crowd, determination washed over her once more. This was more than a performance. It was their chance to redefine Maplewood as more than a relic of loss. Each person there had a part to play. "Let us not stop now," she urged the band, her voice steady. The battle for their community was just beginning, and they were not alone. The crescendo of the music built toward a powerful finale, but in the pit of her stomach, a haunting question refused to quiet. Would their music be enough to change the tide? As they played their hearts out, Emily felt the truth looming closer, and as the last note hung heavy in the air, she braced herself for the storm that was surely coming. Would this fragile hope survive the next wave of doubt, or was it already too late? The applause erupted like a thunderstorm. Emily felt the vibrations of the crowd resonating through her bones, a wave of warmth washing over her. She drew in a deep breath, her heart swelling with the thrill of triumph and an undercurrent of uncertainty. Yet her eyes locked into Jonathan's scowl, hardened and unyielding as he stood at the forefront of the crowd, refusing to yield. "Just words and noise," he muttered under his breath, but every syllable sparked fire in Emily's veins. She had unleashed a symphony forged from their collective memories and struggles, yet here he was, an immovable wall against their hope. "Let us keep it going," Emily urged, desperation creeping into her voice. She turned to the band. "Let us show him what we've got." Matt, still sitting at the front with energy zipping through him, grinned back. "Yeah, more stories. More music." He beat his drum wildly, and the others picked up on his infectious enthusiasm. Before she knew it, they were navigating through an impromptu song reflecting the essence of Maplewood. The laughter, the struggles, the deep love for their community poured out like a river, a beautiful chaos of sound. Around her, faces shone with hope. One by one, people in the crowd began to share their stories, weaving their voices into the growing anthem. The worn-out mothers who had fought to keep their homes intact. The kids dreaming of futures away from the echoes of pessimism. The elderly recounting their past glories. As emotions deepened, so did Emily's own resolve. Every story shared fueled the music, each note rising higher. joy mingled with sorrow, a tapestry woven right before her eyes. It was raw yet beautiful. This was real music, not the polished perfection Jonathan had deemed worthy. But even as the moment blossomed, she felt Jonathan's eyes bore into her with a chilling intensity. The music continued, but the looming shadow of dissent was ever present, thickening in the air. Enough of this, he finally bellowed, breaking through the celebration like a winter storm. This is just noise. You can't change reality with pretty melodies. The laughter died, replaced by a heavy silence. Emily's heart sank. Had they stepped too far into the light, risking exposure to the darkness? "Excuse me," shouted a voice from somewhere in the crowd. It was Rita, a shop owner who had held on through the toughest years. "You don't live here, Jonathan. You don't feel what we feel. Do you think we're just going to sit quiet and let you define our lives? We are Maplewood." The energy shifted, igniting in Emily's chest. Yes, they were more than the labels people bestowed upon them. They were fierce, they were alive, and they would defend their spirit. "You're right," Emily shouted, gathering strength. "This music, it's our truth. It's proof that we're still here, that we still care about one another. We won tea, let it fade." Her voice rang out like a bell, unexpected, commanding. She looked at the crowd, seeing glimmers of belief ignite in faces once dulled by doubt. Suddenly, a woman from the back stepped forward. "I lost my job last year," she admitted, voice quaking but strong. "But I found a way to keep going. This music reminds me why we can't give up." Others began to step forward, echoing her words. Their personal stories wove together until it felt as if the very air vibrated with their collective will. This moment was more than a performance. It was a declaration of survival. In that charged atmosphere, a spark of fear surged within Emily. Jonathan stood glaring, plotting the next swing to suppress what they built. What could he do to dismantle their rising wave? Her stomach twisted at the thought, haunting her. And just as the rousing refrain took hold again, Emily's heart raced anew, decidedly uncertain. Would they hold strong against what was coming their way? The rhythm of their voices swelled, but uncertainty loomed like a dark cloud overhead. As one last surge of courage resonated, Emily glanced at each face around her, each story entwined in that moment. Would they be able to withstand the storm? As the harmony reached its boiling point, anticipation crackled in the air. The struggle was far from over, and the next challenge was just on the horizon. Emily could feel it whispering the real battle was about to begin. The energy in the air hummed with intensity, a living current that rippled through Emily and the crowd. Each moment hung heavy, pregnant with possibility, as they clung to the pieces of courage sparked by their collective voices. Yet, the weight of Jonathan's disapproval pressed down on them like a thick fog. A battle was unfolding, and each heartbeat drummed a rhythm of defiance. As the last note of the chorus lingered in the air, Emily took a step closer to the front of the stage. She felt the crowd shift, every eye locked onto her, waiting for what she would say next. "We're not just here to make noise," she said, her voice steady, the fire in her belly igniting anew. "This is more than a performance, it's an uprising. It's about our lives, our stories. We are Maplewood." In that moment, Emily saw the flicker of hope blossom in faces around her. They were tired, yes, but they were not willing to be silenced. The momentum built again, their voices swelling into an anthem of resilience, shaking off the last remnants of fear. "Tell your stories," she urged. "Let them be heard. This is your moment." With that, a wave of voices surged, each one rising like a phoenix. A young boy stepped forward, excitement spilling out of him. "My mom says we can't give up, no matter how hard things get." The audience roared their approval, a ripple of energy spreading through the crowd. Emily felt a swell of pride. This was it. This was what she dreamed of when she envisioned bringing everyone together. Each voice joined in, creating a powerful chorus that resonated through the square. It was electric. But out of the corner of her eye, she caught Jonathan shifting, an almost imperceptible motion. He was still there, plotting his retaliation. Her heart raced at the thought. "Hey!" Jonathan shouted, breaking through again. "A thorn in their blooming garden. You think this is going to change anything? You're living in a fantasy." His tone was challenging, slicing through their unity like a sharp blade. The crowd wavered for a second, uncertainty creeping back in. Emily felt their confidence flicker. But somewhere deep inside, she understood this was their moment to rally together. No, she cried out more fiercely than before. This is our reality. Each of you is a note in this music. You matter. As if she had thrown gasoline onto the fire, someone else shouted out, we are not ashamed of who we are. We've always found a way. This time the volley of voices didn't just cover Jonathan S. It enveloped him, a tidal wave of resilience. Do you hear us? A man in the back yelled. We are still standing. After everything, we're still here. The rhythm of their voices swelled again, louder and more powerful. Emily closed her eyes, letting the music flow into her, fueling every word with the collective spirit of the crowd. But suddenly a loud crash cut through the moment, stifling their breath. A bottle soared through the air, shattering against the stage's edge. Jonathan had turned into a storm, the sequel to his threatening glare brewing in his eyes. What the Emily started, panic drilling through her as she searched the crowd. Concern rippled through the people around her. Faces contorted with confusion. Whispers began to spiral like wind through leaves. Jonathan didn't back down. He stepped forward, arms crossed, his face a mask of disdain. You really think you can win? I'll show you just how fragile your little dream is. A chill crawled down Emily's spine, panic mingling with an unexpected fire of indignation. She stood tall. We are not fragile. We are Maplewood. Desperate eyes searched for reassurance, and she caught hold of someone from the band at her side. Matt nodded, purpose solidifying in his gaze. As tension thickened like a rope binding them together, seriousness knitted their resolve tighter. Something was about to break. Would it be their spirit, or would it be Jonathan's unyielding will? She could feel the anxiety crackling in the crowd, a powder keg waiting for a spark. What will happen now? She wondered deeply, her heart racing as the storm brewed on. Could they fight back against the gale that threatened to swallow them whole? Or was this just the beginning of a much darker night ahead? The moment hung heavy, tension vibrating through the crowd like a taut string ready to snap. Emily could feel the heat of Jonathan's glare even from the stage, a firestorm of bitterness aimed squarely at her defiance. She knew she had to act before his overconfidence turned dangerous. Together we rise. She called out, her voice cutting through the charge of anxiety. The crowd stirred, sensing the urgency in her tone. They were still there, still hopeful, yet the threat of Jonathan loomed large. From somewhere in the back, a young woman stepped forward. You're wrong, Jonathan, she shouted. We're fighting for our lives, and we're stronger than you think. The words ignited a spark in the crowd, responses erupting like popcorn. Stronger, someone echoed. Together, shouted another. Emily's heart raced as the chorus erupted. The sound swelled, crashing over them like waves against a sturdy shore, and her uncertainty faded. This was the power of community, the strength forged in shared struggles. But just as the energy reached a fever pitch, Jonathan pushed his way towards the front, fists clenched at his sides. Is this really your idea of strength? He sneered, his voice sharp and dripping with scorn. You think shouting louder will make a difference? You're just delaying the inevitable. The words fell like stones, and Emily felt them land hard. There was a flicker of doubt in some faces around her, and she knew it was time to confront this bully, to illustrate the power she saw in every nodding head, every determined expression. Look around you, Emily shouted, her gesture sweeping across those gathered. These are not just voices, they're stories of courage. Each one of us has the strength to stand against the tide. And when we unite, we become unstoppable. Her voice rang clear, echoing off buildings, wrapping around the crowd like a comforting blanket. The energy shifted, a sort of electric charge buzzing through the atmosphere. People started stepping forward, sharing their stories, each voice adding to the growing symphony of resilience. I lost my job, but I refused to let that stop me. An older woman cried, her eyes shining. My son deserves a future free of fear, shouted a man, arm raised defiantly. With each proclamation, Emily felt the weight of trepidation lift, replaced by a sense of shared purpose. But then Jonathan strode closer, fists raised. Keep talking, he spat, pacing like a predator. You think this will matter? Your pretty words can't fix this mess. You're just a bunch of dreamers. He hurled another bottle, this time smashing it onto the ground just in front of the stage. Glass shattered, scattering like the doubts that had crept into their hearts. Gasps erupted from the crowd, tension thickening the air. Emily stepped back instinctively, but then steadied herself. This was a threat, but it was also a dare. She needed to be the voice that wouldn't break. Dreamers? She echoed, stepping forward, her stance firm. If dreaming means wanting a better tomorrow, then yes. We are dreamers and we will not be silenced. A roar erupted, this time more unified. It surged into the sky, lifting the spirits of all those who dared to believe. Emily felt a rush of determination. It wasn't just about the moment anymore, it was about the future they could carve out together. But beneath that fervor, she sensed Jonathan's anger boiling. His face contorted with fury, he advanced closer, and she braced herself against the storm that he represented. "Hear us the truth," he hissed, with that dark intensity settling over them. "You think this is a revolution, but it's just a flash in the pan. I'll make you regret standing against me." The air crackled with tension, and she could see the fire reflected in his eyes. What would it take to turn this battle of wills into victory? Emily took a deep breath, her heart pounding, knowing that the moment was more than just about words. It was about fighting for every voice that had ever been unheard. Then let us get ready for the fight of our lives. What would happen when they pushed back? How far would Jonathan go to silence them? And what sacrifices would they have to make to ensure their truth was heard? The night was far from over. As Jonathan's threat hung in the air like a storm cloud, Emily could feel the adrenaline coursing through her veins. This was no ordinary confrontation. It was a clash of ideals, a test of tenacity that could decide the fate of their movement. The tension in the crowd intensified. There was a nervous energy that pulsed like a heartbeat. "Stay strong," Emily called out, her voice steady despite the fear surging through her. "This is our moment to stand together. We cannot let fear win." Around her the people responded, faces etched with determination, hope flickering like candles in the dark. They weren't just spectators, they were a tapestry of stories, woven together by shared struggles. And she felt the threads pull taut as they began to unify. "Then we push back," someone shouted from the back. "Yes." Emily's heart soared. "Let us show him what we're made of." They began to chant. The words flowed from their lips louder and louder, beating like war drums. "Stand together. Stand together." The solid rhythm echoed off the buildings, reverberating within Emily's chest, shaking the very ground beneath them. But Jonathan wasn't backing down. His eyes gleamed with a twisted excitement. "You foolish dreamers," he spat, stepping closer until his shadow fell over them. "You think this ends well for you? You're begging for disaster." With a sudden movement he swung his arm, sending a spray of sharp glass shards flying towards the people in front. Gasps filled the air, and panic flickered like a flame struggling for fuel. Emily's heart dropped as she watched it happen, fists white-knuckled at her sides. "Shield yourselves," she cried. "Watch." A couple of people stumbled backward, but others instinctively moved closer, forming a wall between the broken glass and those who might get hurt. The unity was fierce and beautiful, turning fear into a protective force. Jonathan's moment of shock gave Emily the window she needed. "Look at this. This is what strength looks like. Together we protect one another. We will rise above this." Cheers erupted, louder this time, drowning out the sound of dissent in Jonathan's voice. The crowd began drifting forward like a wave, overwhelming him with courage. Each person stepped closer, undeterred, ready to meet the ferocity of their opponent. "You think this is your victory?" Jonathan sneered, but there was uncertainty creeping into his voice. "I'll only make it worse for you." "What's worse than living in fear?" Emily countered, her voice slicing through the chaos. "What's worse than silence?" His expression flickered. For a moment all the bravado slipped away, and in its place was something close to doubt. Emily seized that opening, determination burning bright. "We choose hope. We choose to stand up and tell our stories." And each time she spoke, the crowd responded, their voices weaving around her in a chorus building momentum. "We will fight for our dreams," shouted a young girl, her eyes wide and fierce. "For our families," came a voice from the side, steady and certain. As one they surged forward, a collective force against Jonathan's brutality. Emily felt an unshakable sense of solidarity blooming, weaving through hearts and uniting them against the common foe. But just as victory seemed within reach, Jonathan's face hardened. "You'll regret this," he warned, his voice low and dark, almost a whisper, but the intensity roared louder than ever. The crowd swelled, undaunted, but Emily knew he was more determined than ever. She could see the gears turning in his mind. What would he do next? The fiery resolve in her clashed with the dread that coiled inside. "Are we ready for this fight?" she asked, looking around at the sea of faces. Their eyes sparkled with bravery. "Yes," came the resounding answer. But will they be ready for what Jonathan had planned next? The night was far from over, and the true battle had only just begun. As Emily stared into the eyes of her supporters, each glimmer of courage only fueled her determination further. Her heartbeat resonated with the pulse of the crowd, a shared rhythm that spoke of resilience. But in the depths of her mind, she questioned everything. What more could Jonathan throw at them? Jonathan stood firm, the darkness in his eyes clashing with the light radiating from the crowd. With deliberate calmness, he pulled back, as if gathering strength for an even larger onslaught. Emily watched him, fear curling in her stomach. This wasn't just about physical confrontation. It was a war of wills. "Your hope is adorable," Jonathan said, a mocking tone slipping from his lips like poison. "But hope won't protect you when the sun rises and you're still frozen in your dreams." His words cut through the crowd like a knife, yet Emily could see the anger igniting in their eyes. "Hold strong," she urged, feeling the swell of emotion. "This man doesn't understand us. He doesn't know the power of our voices united." In that moment, a group of young people stepped forward, their faces hardened by defiance. One of the young men, with fiery red hair and a chiseled jaw, raised his voice above the din. "We may not have armor or weapons, but we have each other. And with that, we are invincible." The crowd erupted in cheers again, and Emily felt a warm swell of pride blossoming within her. They weren't just words thrown aimlessly into the night. This was a vow, a promise to fight against injustice not just for themselves, but for every person who had been silenced. Jonathan's eyes narrowed, and for the first time, there was a flicker of something else. Fear? She couldn't be sure. But it mattered little. Emily stepped closer, her voice shaky but fierce. "You may think you can intimidate us, but each shard of glass, each threat, only sharpens our resolve." With that proclamation, a strong wind stirred, almost echoing her words. It felt as though the universe conspired to affirm their unity. Then Jonathan scoffed, regaining composure. "You think tonight is the end? You're merely pawns in a game much larger than you realize. I promise you this is just the beginning." An unsettling silence fell. Emily felt it, a knot tightening in her stomach. What did he mean? She tightened her fists, feeling a wave of anxiety wash over her. But she wouldn't show fear. "We are not afraid," she screamed, her voice breaking through the din. "And while you see us as pawns, we are kings and queens of our destiny." The crowd roared, a sea of voices rising in response to her rallying cry. In that moment, unity surged like electricity through the air. Just then, an unmistakable sound sliced through the tension, the booming clash of distant thunder. Everyone turned, glancing at the horizon where dark clouds loomed ominously. Emily felt a shiver run down her spine. "Look!" someone shouted, pointing skyward. The clouds were swirling, thunder rumbling in alignment with Jonathan's warnings. Fear mingled with hope now, thickening the air. The chaos around them sprawled like a fever dream. Her heart hammered in her chest. "We can't let this overshadow us. We push on together. We fight for each other." But the storm loomed closer, shadows deepening, while Jonathan stood at the forefront, watching their every move with predatory intent. What were they about to face? An undeniable urge ignited within Emily. They would not cower in the storm, but channel its fury into their fight. Suddenly she realized something profound. Their greatest strength lay in their unity. Perhaps that was the very thing Jonathan feared the most. But could they withstand whatever he had planned next? With determination boiling in her veins, Emily faced the storm. It was time to meet both the literal and metaphorical battles head-on. Yet one question lingered in her heart. What would the storm reveal when it finally broke? The wind howled louder, almost like it was confirming Emily's rallying call. It wrapped around her, lifting her hair and filling her lungs with strength. The crowd stood firm, determination etched across their faces as thunder cracked above, punctuating the charged atmosphere. Jonathan watched them, the corners of his mouth twitching. There was something unsettling about his gaze, something that made Emily's stomach drop. She realized he was feeding off their fear, thriving on it. "What are you waiting for?" he taunted, his voice booming over the rumbling sky. "Let us see just how brave you all are when the storm breaks." "Stay together," Emily shouted, feeling sweat bead on her brow despite the chill. "We're more than just strong words. We are a force. We fight for every voice that's been silenced." And just then, the wind suddenly shifted, slamming against her words, carrying them away like whispers lost in the chaos. Amid the growing storm, she noticed the faces of her supporters, some marred with uncertainty. The unease brushed against her heart, but she forced herself to smile, hoping it would reassure them. They needed her to be strong. "Together," she yelled, her voice ringing clear. "Together we stand against the darkness." Something flickered in the crowd, a ripple of recognition. They stepped closer, the unity forged from silent cries now standing against Jonathan's taunts. Emily felt her heart swell with pride. They were ready to face this storm. They could be brave. From behind her, a deafening crack of lightning broke the sky. The light illuminated the faces around her, revealing a tapestry of fear, hope, and fierce resolve. The crowd seemed to inhale sharply, a collective breath holding on to that moment before the next phase of battle. And then, just as sudden as the storm had arrived, the rain began to pour. It cascaded down, drenching them almost instantaneously. Gasps erupted, but Emily took a step forward, her arms wide. "Embrace it," she implored, laughter bubbling in her voice as the cold dripped off her skin. "Feel it. This storm can't drown us. It only makes us stronger." And in that powerful moment, laughter broke through the crowd. Young people danced, twirling under the torrents, while older faces cracked into smiles, caught off guard by hope surfacing amidst chaos. They were not scared anymore. They were alive in this moment. Jonathan, however, appeared unimpressed, brow furrowing deeper as he glowered through the sheets of rain. "You fool yourselves," he shouted. But Emily could hear the uncertainty creeping into his tone. This is just the beginning, but she refused to let him finish. "We will not let you define us," she challenged, the raw intensity in her heart igniting a fire deep within. With one fierce breath, she looked at the storm swirling around them. It was no longer a symbol of despair but of cleansing and rebirth. She closed her eyes and swayed to the rhythm of the thunder, feeling it pulse through her veins. As each droplet fell, it washed away the doubts, the fears. They were cleansing the city, cleansing their souls. "When this storm passes, we will be even greater." And across the sea of faces, the incitement caught on like wildfire. Voices rose together, merging into one vibrant chant. "We are strong. We are united." The unity surged like a tidal wave, a force of nature that Jonathan could not ignore. But as the storm raged on, Emily soon felt a shift in the air. It was heavier, charged in a way that sent chills down her spine. Something was coming, something more than just the storm. What exactly lay ahead as the tempest brewed? With her heart racing, she caught sight of Jonathan's eyes dark, calculating something brewing behind them. Emily wondered, could they withstand whatever horrors awaited them? And what other surprises would the storm unveil when it drew closer to its climax? The storm intensified, a chaotic symphony of wind and rain, but Emily's voice cut through the tumult like a beacon. Each word reverberated with a fierce determination that seemed to merge with the force of nature surrounding her. As lightning split the sky, she marveled at how it illuminated the spirit of the crowd, faces lit with resolve, hearts pounding in unison. "Let us show him," a voice yelled from the front. It was Jake, a passionate young man who had devoted every ounce of his energy to the movement. Emily locked eyes with him, the fire in his gaze igniting something deeper within her. "Are we scared?" she challenged the crowd, raising her chin defiantly. "No," they roared in response, a fierce wave of sound that echoed through the storm. "Then let us show him what it means to stand together," Emily urged, adrenaline surging through her veins. Each drop of rain felt like a kiss of possibility, washing away the weight of doubt. As the shouts grew stronger, something extraordinary happened. A few courageous souls climbed up on the overturned cart beside her, stretching their arms wide as the storm raged on. Inspired, others followed, until a row of makeshift pillars emerged before her people, standing proud, drenched, yet glowing with defiance. Cracks of lightning exploded overhead, momentarily casting shadows and light on those assembled. Who would have thought they could find joy amidst the chaos? They shared right there what it meant to be truly alive. Emily couldn't help but laugh again, the sound pure and alive. We are the heartbeat of this storm. We are hope, we are change. But even as the energy soared, Emily sensed Jonathan's gaze sharpen, his calculating mind formulating plans against them. The wind howled louder, and something dark smirked behind his eyes. She gasped when she saw him pull something from his coat, a flicker of metal glinting dangerously in the dark. Enough of this foolishness, he bellowed, framing his hands in front of him like a conductor preparing to unleash a most terrible crescendo. Emily's heart raced. Every fiber of her being screamed to protect her friends, to shield this beautiful moment from Jonathan's encroaching darkness. Shield! She cried, urgency filling her lungs. Form a wall. The throng moved instinctively, creating a makeshift barrier around their core. The collective heartbeat of their resistance pulsed stronger as they faced Jonathan, unyielding against the tempest. Are you ready to see your strength? Jonathan sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. A chill ran through the air, a sudden weight that pressed upon Emily's shoulders. She turned to her friends, seeing sheer determination behind their frightened eyes, and knew they needed to draw from that inner wellspring of courage. Together we can face anything. This storm can't break us. With those words she took a step forward, grounding herself in the unity they had forged. The storm may rage, but it would not define them. As one they chanted louder than the thunder and rain, we are the storm. We are united. And then, just as Jonathan loomed closer, the tension crackled, an electric shift in the air. Emily's heart pounded furiously. What would happen next? Would their unity hold strong against Jonathan's sinister intent? Or would the storm reveal even deeper shadows lurking within? A pulse of both fear and hope beat in their chests, each breath sharing the promise of resilience. But the moment hung precariously. What would emerge as they faced down Jonathan and the chaotic storm? That question, heavy yet hopeful, left Emily shivering with anticipation. The storm raged on, each gust of wind mingling with the tumult of emotions roiling within the crowd. Emily's heart raced, a steady rhythm beating with the crescendo of voices around her. As the thunder boomed overhead, she locked eyes with Jonathan, the darkness swirling in his expression only fueling her resolve. They had already come so far. She refused to let fear take root now. Are you ready? She roared over the din, her voice a steady anchor in the chaos. Are we ready to stand together, no matter what he throws at us? Yes. The crowd surged forward, a collective shout of defiance rising like the tide. This was it. This was where they would show Jonathan that hope was stronger than fear. In that intense moment, Emily felt a swell of inspiration flood her. We are not just surviving. We are creating a future. Our dreams matter, and we will not let anyone steal that from us. Their voices intertwined, wrapping around her like a protective cocoon. Laughter bubbled up, intertwined with the sound of the storm, a melody of resilience that echoed in the night. Emily could see the children dancing, their laughter bright and unrestrained. She smiled through her tears, the warmth spreading like sunlight among the shadows. Suddenly, amidst the chaos, Jonathan's voice cut through with a sneer. You think this little show of unity will change anything? You're fooling yourselves. Drawn by the harshness of his tone, the crowd's chorus faltered for a moment. But Emily stepped forward, determination blazing in her chest. It's not just a show, Jonathan. This is our lives. We will not cower in the storm you create. We fight for our families, our hopes, our future. In that moment, something shifted, an energy coursed through the crowd, igniting them once more. They were a force of nature, propelled by the very thing Jonathan tried to undermine. The air thickened with anticipation as Emily connected with each face, filled with conviction. You call us fools, but it's you who's blind. A voice roared from the crowd. Sarah, the town florist. We are not just a collection of broken dreams. We are a symphony of strength. That is something you'll never understand. Emily's heart soared. Each word spoken reinforced their bond, wrapped them in a shared identity. Together we are powerful, she called out, the storm swirling like a dance around them. We are reclaiming our voices, our community. As storm clouds rumbled overhead, Emily felt a flicker of fear finally dissipate. You want to break us? She challenged Jonathan, her spirit unwavering. Then do your worst. Without warning, a gust of wind roared through the square, sending papers and debris flying. Jonathan laughed, but something in his laugh sounded unsteady. Emily turned her gaze to the crowd, their determination unyielding in the face of turmoil. It only fueled her fire. Look at us, she exclaimed. Look at the strength we have. Look at how far we've come. We're not afraid of the storm because we've found ourselves through it. Suddenly a clap of thunder rolled, and the sound seemed to echo Emily's heart. She could see the unity radiate among the townsfolk. No longer were they victims. They were warriors rising above the despair. We are wildflowers in this storm, she proclaimed, shining with beauty born from resilience. When the sun emerges after the rain, we'll be standing tall. The crowd erupted into cheers, clapping rhythmically to reinforce her words, the music taking on a life of its own. They clapped louder, and suddenly each individual voice became part of a greater symphony. United, they chanted, their spirit unshakable. As Jonathan stood before them, realizing the tide had turned, a flicker of desperation crossed his face. They had pushed through the storm, and now it lay bare before them, a landscape ready for new beginnings. And with that realization, a sense of peace washed over Emily. They had faced the tempest and emerged not just unscathed but stronger. Jonathan's bravado faltered. This is just the beginning, he spat, yet the tremor laced in his voice betrayed his fear. Then bring it on, Emily said, her voice unwavering. Together we will fight. For our town, for our families. We are more than what you can see, we are a force. As her words hung in the air, a revitalized energy surged among the crowd. They held their heads high, hearts alight with the passion and strength of their shared stories. Jonathan could berate them, but he couldn't silence them. They had found their voices not just in song, but in the very essence of their being. And finally the storm began to subside, the winds calmed, and the rain softened to a mist, welcoming a hush across the crowd. As the clouds began to drift apart, the moon peeked through, washing over them in soft silver light. In that hushed moment it dawned on Emily. They weren't merely a band of musicians turned together against a tyrant. They were a community renewed, steeled in the fires of struggle, unified in purpose. With hearts full of hope and songs lingering in the air, they stood strong, refusing to let the echoes of Jonathan's taunts extinguish their newfound voices. They had embraced their story, woven it into something beautiful, and together, they would forge a brighter future for Maplewood. And as they moved toward this new dawn, Emily could see the promise of tomorrow taking shape right before them, shimmering just on the horizon. The transformation was real. It was palpable. This was their moment, and together, they would rise now. As Emily faced Jonathan one last time, she knew it wasn't the storm that mattered. It was the light they chose to create. Would that light be enough to carry them forward? Only time would tell. But she would fight for every inch if that's what it took. And with that, she turned to the crowd, a renewed sense of purpose in her heart. Let us carry this light forward. Together through every storm. This was their beginning, their moment to shine. As the people around her raised their voices once more, she felt the warmth of belief swell between them. In Maplewood, hope had taken root, and together they would foster its growth. Now let us take this spirit and soar. You need to subscribe immediately to keep the fire of this story alive. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and empower more tales of transformation. Comment your thoughts about the journey and how it impacted you. And please don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through their actions.